What's going on, everybody? Jolts here from the Token Minorities, and I am here with NPL Season 7 Week 2 against Cheeseboy628 and his Phoenix Sunkern. Make sure to check him out. He will be linked in the description below, along with all the other coaches in the NPL Majors, NPL Minors, and our analysts that we all love so dearly. Make sure to check all of them out, as well as links down below to the NPL fan server, NPL YouTube channel, and the NPL Twitter. Now, let's jump right on into this battle. This is going to be a tough one. His draft is pretty spooky. It's really fat, and it has this really nasty sand core at the end that's kind of a pain to deal with, honestly. So he has Manaphy, which is Z eligible, Heatran, Sylveon, Amoonguss, Donphan, Mandibuzz. So there's all the fat we were talking about. Stoutland, Raikou, Mega T-Tar, Swellow, and the Gallade. So he has some freaking threats on his team. The Mega T-Tar especially is just an enormous threat to my team and really to the whole league. I'm actually really impressed with how good Mega T-Tar looks on paper. It's one of those Megas that I wouldn't really think would be that great in practice, just because it's slow and has that quad weakness to fighting. You can't even run like a Chople Berry for it. But no, it's a threat, and you'd be surprised at the amount of hits it can take, especially when supported by a full team of 6 that can really make it shine. So yeah, Cheese has drafted a really good team here, and it's going to be a pain in the butt for me to deal with for sure. Like I already said, the Mega T-Tar is an enormous threat against my whole draft, just because at +1 after a Dragon Dance, it can 2-hit KO everything with ease. It can OHKO most of my team, and the scariest part is it actually can outspeed most of my team as well. I have to have Scarfers to be able to outpace a +1 Mega Tyranitar, which is really scary. I was hoping something like Crobat could just outspeed it and be good to go, but no, he can actually even run Adamant DD and still speed time Mega Houndoom. Not that Mega Houndoom can really do much in return. So yeah, Mega T-Tar is an enormous threat to my team. I also think that Manaphy is pretty annoying for me. Just a standard Tail Glow set with some sort of Z move could be really good against me. I am expecting to see an ICMZ, so Z Ice Beam, coming from the Manaphy as the most likely set. I think Z Rain Dance is a little too limiting in that he wouldn't be able to run coverage for both Rotom and for Goodra without having to basically forego using Surf or Scald on that set, and I don't think that's something Cheese would do. So I think he's going to be 3 attacks Tail Glow. I think that's the most likely set with a Z Crystal. But nonetheless, it is still a very, very threatening set against my team. Heatran is also kind of annoying, especially if Cheese really steps up that prep game and runs something like Magma Storm. As Magma Storm Heatran, I don't have switch-ins for it, especially if it also has Power Herb Solar Beam for Rotom, as Magma Storm will be able to wear down Goodra pretty easily, especially if he has Taunt and or Toxic, and of course Solar Beam plus Magma Storm would get rid of Rotom in a heartbeat. So yep, that's a threat too. Just a very, very threatening team. Defensively, I think I can deal with it without too much trouble. The Amoonguss is a little annoying for both my Zangoose and my Terrakion, especially if you run something like a Rocky Helmet, just because Zangoose wears itself down pretty quickly, and Terrakion can't do much to Amoonguss, honestly, at all, unless I have a Swords Dance up. So Amoonguss certainly could be an issue. But otherwise, defensively, his team isn't that threatening. It's more that sand offense plus Manaphy that gives me a hard time. And even Raikou, to an extent, is pretty annoying because I have to switch in things like Goodra, these fat pivots that he can just Volt Switch on and go straight into Mega Tyranitar and threaten my whole team. So, kind of a recurring theme I'm seeing here. This is kind of the same problem I had against Trev when I was prepping. It was those electric types being able to Volt Switch on my fat pivots and do big breakers that give me trouble. There might be something I have to patch up in free agency. We will see on that. But as for now, I think we can deal with it. I think I have a pretty good idea as to what my best mons are against him. One other thing I do want to point out, that little Gallade down there at the bottom of his list is actually really threatening too. Just a bulkier bulk up Gallade, or just a flat out bulky Gallade with even like Wish Protect just to support his defensive core is pretty annoying for my team, because it does switch into Terrakion well. It also outspeeds some of my slower stuff, my fatter stuff. It does not outspeed my faster stuff necessarily, but it switches into them pretty well, honestly. It's a good switch into Jirachi, potentially, if I don't run proper coverage, as it could just bulk up in my face, and like I've already said, it switches into Terrakion pretty well, and if it's specially defensive, it might actually be able to deal with Mega Houndoom potentially too, so that's not a bad bring. His whole team is kind of on the table. I think that Stoutland is unlikely. It's possible, though, but unlikely. Cheese has been known to bring it to kind of weird matchups, though. I mean, we're only at week 2, I guess, but even against Riz, I didn't think it had the best matchup whenever he faced him, but he did bring it anyway, so I have to respect it. It's definitely something he could bring. And the Swallow is probably the one mon that I think is not going to come. And that's because I have just so many ways to deal with it. I have a Jirachi, which sure he can run Heat Wave, but I also have a Cofagrigus, which is just straight up it resists, or it's immune to normal, so it won't be taken too much unless he runs Scrappy, I suppose. Which is certainly an option. It's probably something he would do. But I also have the Terrakion, I have the Rotom, I even have the Terrakion, Rotom, and the Jirachi are the main reasons why I don't think Swallow is super good against me, but also the Goodra can just chew from it, honestly. So, you never know, though. Cheese is a little unpredictable. Sometimes he just brings things that look good on paper, but also sometimes he really steps up his prep game, so it's tough to really know, which Cheese you're going to get in a given battle. But I thought his prep versus Riz was pretty good. I think he was a little rusty moving in to this season since he doesn't have too much experience this gen yet, but now we're a week away from that. I think he's gotten his feet wet in Gen 7 draft format, so it's going to be a good game for sure. But some of the bigger threats on my team to his team would include the Terrakion and the Zangoose. Most notably the Zangoose, honestly. Look at his team. Look at his Zangoose switch-ins. He doesn't have one, so Zangoose is super good. All I really need is normal and fighting coverage to hit his entire team really hard, and that does leave room for things like Swords Dance and Quick Attack. So Zangoose is something I'm going to try to build around here, and in doing so, I'm also going to couple that with the Terrakion because the Zangoose Terrakion core, physically, offensively speaking, can do a lot of damage to his team if I'm able to wear down the proper wall. So it's going to really put a lot of pressure on him defensively by running those two mons together. I also think the Goodra matches up pretty well if I'm able to keep it healthy, but that is the key because I do feel like I need Goodra to help deal with Manaphy, Heatran, as well as Raikou, and potentially even Swallow. So Goodra could have a lot of pressure on it. I need to keep it healthy, and I might actually need to run Assault Vest too, so that means something like a Wish Jirachi could be very useful here for this matchup. Other than that, there's just other role players that I could put on this team that would help me out. But for that, we can just hop on over to the team builder and talk about what I decided to bring here. So we're going to kick this off with the Jirachi. Now this is a Wish Passer, and it's a Wish Passer because we have a Goodra. We need to bring, I've already talked about that, we're bringing Goodra. This is going to be the premier partner for Goodra, having that Wish Pass to keep it healthy and help me slowly just take hits from the opponent, from Cheese's team. I need to be able to take hits from his team throughout the game to be able to survive. I need to be able to take hits until I have the prime opportunities to bring in my breakers to hopefully help me wear him down. So this team is basically going to consist of this defensive core of Jirachi Wish Passing into the Goodra, as well as a couple Momentum Mons, and then the Breaker core of Terrakion and Zangoose. So this set is pretty interesting. So what this set does is this allows me to first of all break a sub of a max HP Tyranitar with Moonblast. I think that's pretty important. I cannot let Tyranitar have a sub up, and especially not a sub and a Dragon Dance, because if that's the case, I lose, and guaranteed. So, yeah, can't let that happen. So I do need Moonblast on this set. This also allows me to actually deal with the Gallade, which otherwise could just set up bulk ups on Jirachi all day long. So this deals with both of those very well as actually luring in a sense that Tyranitar doesn't really lure and kill, but it can weaken into range of Crobat and Rotom, which is exactly what I need this to do. So I do have the Culpipary, which either forces him to click Crunch or click Earthquake, and my investment does allow me to actually survive a, I believe, +1 Adamant Earthquake from the Tyranitar, which is pretty key. Only from full health, of course, but even so, having that option to check it in that way, or at least weaken it down, could be pretty key, especially because if it is Adamant, that means that my Crobat can outspeed it. If he is Jolly, I believe that outpaces Crobat. I'm pretty sure that outpaces Crobat, so yeah, this could definitely come in clutch in that regard. Stealth Rocks are also super important because I need to slowly wear down his wall core to the point where Zangoose and Terrakion can win the game, and I think in combination with the Momentum core and the Goodra being able to sponge hits from whatever he's able to send in, I think I'll be able to do that. It might take a little bit. This game might be a lot longer, will be a lot longer than my game against Trev, but I think the team itself the glue here is this Jirachi, and it should do pretty well. Now I'm also Psyshock on this because what this does is it allows me to also deal kind of well with a sub-CM Raikou or even just a Calm Mind Raikou. Psyshock still hits that pretty hard. It also allows me to beat Amoonguss 1v1 as long as he can't Spore me or doesn't have Spore. That's obviously a little bit of an issue, but Amoonguss really shouldn't be able to beat me 1v1 regardless, because despite the fact that it could be like Spore HP Fire or even Spore Foul Play, I don't think he'll be able to do more damage than what my wishes can recover. I'm pretty sure on that. So yeah, Jirachi can deal with Amoonguss very well as well. Now you'll see a recurring theme as well with this Wall Core, with the exception of one of the mons, that I have a lot of ways to deal with Amoonguss, because I really think Amoonguss is coming. It's his best response to Terrakion by far, and he's going to be forced to bring it, quite honestly. So having a ton of ways to deal with Amoonguss is pretty key, I think. And you will see that as a recurring theme here as we work through the team build. Now next up is the Terrakion. This is Choice Scarfed. Jolly, unfortunately, cannot run Adamant Scarf because, despite the fact that Adamant Scarf Terrakion does outpace Jolly +1 Mega T-Tar, Jolly Scarf Terrakion outpaces Adamant Stoutland in the sand. So that's pretty nice. Unfortunately, I did need max speed to do that, but that's not the worst thing in the world. I wasn't really going to be abusing Terrakion's bulk by any means in this game, so that does work out pretty well for me here. Moveset, pretty straightforward. Only really needed Close Combat and Stone Edge, if I'm being honest, but just in case he is Jolly Stoutland in the sand, I felt like Quick Attack was pretty essential to have. I needed to get that little bit of extra chip damage on it, and then I debated between Rock Slide and Iron Head for the final slot. I opted for Iron Head just in case he did bring the Sylveon. I don't think this team had too much really for Sylveon, so I felt like Iron Head was good just to give me that extra option to maybe check it and flinch down if I need to. Rock Slide could have also been nice for the flinch chance or to just have more PP to deal with a potential Mana Buzz bring, but ultimately opted for Iron Head here. Now next up is the Zangoose. This is pretty standard overall. It does outpace, I believe, max speed Heatran was the benchmark I hit on this. It might have been something a little bit higher, but I think it was Heatran. Could have been Gallade actually, but even so, pretty straightforward set here with Facade and Close Combat, SD, and Quick Attack. Again, just having that priority for anything that outspeeds me, like the Raikou and Manaphy, which I will fully expect to come, or potentially the Stoutland if he does decide to bring this. This would do a lot of damage to any of them, especially if I get up to +2, and if I am at +2, there are no switch-ins. Things will drop, and even if I'm not +2, things will be 2 KO'd without any trouble. So Zangoose is a monster. Let me tell you, Zangoose is probably the best 3-point take-up I've ever had in my life. Now next up is the Crobat. We have Safety Goggles this week with Infiltrator, Brave Bird, U-Turn, Roost, and Defog. So an overall kind of standard Crobat set minus the Safety Goggles as opposed to something like Black Sludge. So this will be my dedicated switch into the Amoonguss time and time again. I'll be able to get momentum on the Amoonguss switching out, potentially into a Tyranitar, potentially into a Raikou, potentially into, I guess, a Manaphy, potentially. He could also go into Heatran. Any of those options I have really good responses for if he does switch them into Crobat, so U-Turn helps me out a ton there. Defog to get rid of Hazard, of course. The attack investment here allows me to hit 25% of damage on the max HP, or yeah, on a max, not max HP Raikou, it would be on a the most likely Raikou set, which would be 4 HP, or even 4 defense to speed tie Mega Houndoom, basically. So not the most critical benchmark, I don't think, but just having that, I felt like it was okay, I guess, to put in that extra investment just because I needed to make sure I could chip Manaphy into range of Terrakion anyways at some point during the game, as well as doing a little more damage to the Tyranitar with U-turns and to Raikou with U-turns and etc. So again, not essential attack investment, but it was something that I felt could be useful, and I really saw no reason not to go for it there. I do have nearly max HP though as well, just to help me chew hits from Amoonguss as well as possible. Now, next up is the Rotom Wash. Very, very standard set here, at least in terms of the move set. Volt Witch, Hydro Pains, but Will-O-Wisp looks just like a ladder Rotom from Gen 6. Don't really know if it's used too much this gen, but at least this is a Gen 6 Rotom. The HP pretty obvious there, nearly max. 188 defense. It allows me to essentially take hits from Tyranitar as well as possible after Stealth Rock and Sand. Kind of a tricky investment there. Basically just making sure I have that another check to +1 T-Tar, more or less +1 Mega Tyranitar is just such a massive threat to this team. There's not much I can really do about it, honestly. I don't have taunt on anything to prevent DDs, but I do have ways to chip it down and prevent it from getting both a DD and a sub. That's really the game plan. Just don't let it get both, and I should be okay. Terrakion can always check it offensively, which is nice, and as long as it's not +2 or as long as Rotom Wash isn't chipped, Rotom can also check it pretty well with Willow and or Hydro Pump. Crobat can't do a whole lot to it, but it can U-turn on it and get a little bit of chip damage on that to help get it in range of other stuff on my team. So that's the general idea with this team. Basically just do my best to not let T-Tar set up. I can't beat it 1v1 with everything on my team, but if I play well enough, I can prevent it from having those opportunities. So that's the general idea with that. And I had a little bit of leftover investment here to throw into speed to help me outpace max speed Donphan just in case, and then 28 just randomly in special defense because I can and never know when that might come in handy. Now next up is the Goodra. I already talked about this a little bit, just a nice assault vest variant, again with defense investment to allow me to take specific hits from the Mega T-Tar and the rest in special defense just to help me deal with the Manaphy as well as the Raikou and the Heatran and all these special threats I have to try to deal with. Combination of Jirachi plus Goodra needs to be alive for the majority of the game for me to be able to win, so I have to do everything in my power to keep that around. Hopefully I don't get pressed into a situation where I have to sack the Jirachi to the T-Tar to prevent it from Dragon Dancing and whatnot, but if I have to, I have to, because that thing can just sweep my team. So it's a tricky matchup. Definitely starting to see some of the flaws of my draft come to light, and that's something I will try to patch up, I think, in free agency if I can find proper swaps. But for now, I still think the draft itself is really fun to use. It's super versatile still, even if it has some weaknesses. I enjoy building with it, and I think that's the most important thing, honestly. So with that said, that's the team. Overall, pretty straightforward. Double breakers with a Scarfer, double momentum, and then a defensive core with pivots. Pretty solid overall. You know, let's just go ahead and hop on over to the battle and see what my opponent Cheeseboy decided to bring. So he decided to bring the Raikou, Heatran, Sylveon, Amoonguss, Manaphy, and the Mega T-Tar. So definitely a pretty interesting squad here. I kind of expected to maybe see the Gallade instead of the Sylveon. I saw Gallade in a lot of my practice battles and thought it was a pretty good bring, honestly, and that's why I more tailored that Jirachi toward beating the Gallade than just beating the T-Tar. But he actually brought the Sylveon instead, which makes me kind of regret not having Iron Head anymore on my Jirachi, but even so, I think I should be able to deal with it because I do have the Iron Head on the Terrakion as well as the Zangoose, which probably just OHKOs Sylveon, let's be honest, as well as the Crobat, which if it's only Hyper Voice can deal with it 1v1, and Goodra can maybe get a poison on it with Sludge Bomb, etc. Jirachi does have Wish, so it does beat Sylveon 1v1 probably, or at least wears it down and gives it a really hard time if he does not have Shadow Ball or HP Fire. So team preview, nothing too unexpected here. I think we should be okay. He didn't bring the Mana Buzz, which also could have been a little bit annoying for my team just because I only really brought the Terrakion for it, honestly. Rotom does a little bit to it, but honestly it's only can Volt Switch on it. It can Wisp and Volt Switch on it, but doesn't really kill it, so it doesn't do much to Mana Buzz. My team overall can kind of deal well with it, but I could have dealt with it better if I brought different Mons, obviously. But even so, nothing too surprising on his team. I'm expecting to see potentially a Calm Mind Raikou, probably a Magma Storm Heatran. Don't know what the Sylveon's going to be. I can only really assume it's going to be a Cleric because I have a ton of Hyper Voice resists on my team. I don't really see why he'd want to bring Specs, but you never really know. Amoonguss, almost certainly defensive. Hopefully not Rocky Helmet, but it definitely could be. Manaphy, I'm expecting Tail Glow ICMZ, and the Mega T-Tar is either going to be Sub DD or Dragon Dance 3 attacks. Maybe Rock Polish, but most likely Dragon Dance just because the attack boost is really nice for some of my fatter stuff. So, with all that said, let's hop on into this battle and see if we can kick off this season 2-0. So I'm going to lead off with my Rotom Wash, as it's a very good pivot against this entire team, as it leads off with Raikou. Now I am okay with taking the Volt Switch damage just to scout what kind of Raikou this is, and that actually reveals to be uninvested Volt Switch. So this is probably going to be a fat Raikou, which is very good knowledge to have right out of the gates. Now here I can Volt Switch on the incoming Amoonguss and go straight into my Crobat for free, and basically just click U-turn again because I fear nothing from this Amoonguss, and if he stays in, I also have other switch-ins as well. Now here he goes into his Heatran. This is a perfect opportunity to get up my Toxic Orb with the Zangoose, which is pretty nice. Now here, I probably could have switched out just to, you know, not take a potential Rocky Helmet damage on whatever his incoming switch-in is. I could have also just gone straight for a Facade, honestly, and maybe in hindsight that might have been a better play, but he actually goes straight into his Amoonguss and chews up the close combat, unfortunately revealing the Rocky Helmet. So that really sucks for me, but I am going to be able to go straight into my Crobat here on the Amoonguss, not fearing a single thing it could go for. And I could just click a Brave Bird, I believe, on the incoming Raikou just to help chip it down. I know it's bulky now. I need to be able to chip it into range of my Terrakion. It's definitely not in range right now, so I'm going to go for the Brave Bird, followed up by the U-turn back into my Goodra because it's really free. And you'll see this Volt Switch does 4 to my Goodra. This thing is so fat. As he's going to go into his T-Tar, so this is a little bit spooky. I don't really know what he's going to do here. I think it could be a rocker, but it also could just go straight for a Dragon Dance to try to score an early kill. So I'm just going to click Dragon Tail just in case here, which might have been a little risky if he did go for a sub on that turn. And in hindsight, that was actually probably not the best play in the world, but that was my thought process at the time. As I'm going to force in the Raikou after the Dragon Tail, I'm going to click Earthquake this time just so I don't hit the Rocky Helmet on Amoonguss, as that's proving to be also really annoying for this Goodra to deal with. So go for the Earthquake here, as he is going to switch straight on out into his Manaphy, as I just click Earthquake again because I'm not really pressured out by this thing. I clicked Earthquake again just in case he wanted to go hard Heatran or something. Maybe, yeah, hard Heatran expecting my Crobat, for example, maybe trying to get up a Stealth Rock. Thought that was a good risk to take. Here I'm going to go hard into my Rotom expecting the ICMZ, as he did bring in the Manaphy hard on the Goodra, but he actually went for the Hydro Vortex instead, which I thought was kind of interesting. Really thought Sub-Zero Slammer was the play there, so I'm going to scout for the Energy Ball using my Jirachi on that turn, and now probably forcing him to expect some sort of coverage from Manaphy. I felt like he would probably switch out, so I just set up my Stealth Rocks there. Obviously, I can't really touch the Manaphy with my Jirachi, but fortunately was able to make him fall for the bait there, as now I'm going to be able to set up a Wish on the Raikou, knowing that he's uninvested. I'll be able to avoid a 2-hit KO from any 2 attacks from this thing, as he reveals the Thunder Wave. So I'm dealing with the yellow magic in this game. Hooray. So excited for that. So now I'm able to get my Goodra back up to full health from the Wish, which is pretty nice, but now I'm paralyzed, which I guess we'll see later in the game if that actually ends up coming into play. As here I'm going to fire off an Earthquake again. I'm not going to click Dragon Tail unless I'm in the face of the Tyranitar, to be honest, because I don't really want to take unnecessary damage on my Goodra from a Rocky Helmet that I could easily avoid by just clicking Earthquake. Now here again, I'm not forced out by this Amoonguss. Absolute worst case scenario, I can go into Jirachi and wish this thing back up if this Amoonguss just does enough damage to me here with Clear Smugs, as that's clearly all he can really touch me with, which is kind of funny. But here he's going to go into his Sylveon, so he's going to try something new here. Takes a little bit of chip from the Earthquake, and he does not reveal Leftovers, so I'm like, alright, Cheese, what is this? I can still take a Specs Hyper Voice, but you're invested more defensively. He actually reveals the Reflect, so this might be a dual screen Sylveon with Wish. Very interesting prep on his part, but the fact of the matter is I cannot allow him to have a Reflect up, because behind a Reflect, Mega T-Tar is not OHKO'd by Terrakion's close combat. I cannot allow him to go straight into Terrakion and click Dragon Dance in my face, because then I will lose. So yep, I have to go into my Crobat, remove my own rocks and the screen in the process, and now I have to start the process of chipping down the Raikou again. So you can already kind of see this game is going to be a little bit longer. He has a core that's tough to break. I have a core that's hard for him to break. It's definitely going to be a longer game now. I'm going to go into my Goodra on the Raikou as he goes for a Volt Switch. Now here, expecting him to either DD or sub. I wanted to go into my Rotom because that does cover both options pretty well. As if he is adamant, I will be able to actually, no, I would not be able to outspeed him if he is adamant necessarily, but if he was uninvested, I'd be able to outspeed him. But he does just go for the Dragon Dance behind the sub, revealing that he's probably Edgequake as his coverage, but he actually has Crunch. So I'm not sure what his coverage was, and I'm curious if it was actually able to hit my entire team. It might have been Crunch plus Earthquake. Surely he would have something to hit the Terrakion, but good news is, despite the fact that he takes out my Rotom, I actually am able to catch him with the Scarf Terrakion and knock out the Mega T-Tar. So that's pretty nice there for sure, as he's going to force me out with his Manaphy. Now expecting him to either go for a Surf or to go for a Tail Wheel. I'm going to go into my Crobat, because what that does is that will allow me to, at the very least, chip the Manaphy into range of Terrakion. So basically my game plan right now is just to chip his entire team into range of Terrakion's Stone Edge to maybe clean up late games. So trying to make that happen. The Manaphy is now in range, which is pretty nice. Now here I'm going to just click the Close Combat. It's the safest overall option. It hits everything except the Sylveon, and I believe given the range that the Sylveon is at, it's at 40%. It'd be 2-hit KO'd anyways by Close Combat because he does not have Leftovers. So Close Combat was fine. I was fine with taking the Rocky Helmet damage in that situation. Now here I'm going to be able to force out the Amoonguss with my Jirachi, set up my Stealth Rocks, because late game Stealth Rocks are super important to wear down mons into range of the Terrakion, like I've already mentioned, and now I'm forced to go into my Goodra on the Heatran because it's my only switch in left with Rotom gone. Unfortunately, he does have the Magma Storm, so we have the set I did not really want to see. He also has Shuka Berry, when I'm more expected to see the Power Herb Solar Beam, so that was pretty interesting there on his part as well. Now here's maybe a little bit of a misplay on his end. We could talk about why a little bit, so I'm going to pause. So he decides to set up his Stealth Rocks here on turn 35, and Stealth Rocks are fine, they're a good move, but fact of the matter is, well, in this case, so he left me at a range where nothing on his team could take me out, necessarily. Sylveon might have been able to, but I'm still Salt Vest, and if it's defensive Sylveon, I don't really think it would have been able to, honestly, and that means that his only other option to take me out from this range would be the Manaphy. And that doesn't take me out from this range. Ice Beam does not take me out from this range, so what he probably should have done, in my opinion, is gone for a Flash Cannon there to get me a little bit more whittled down into range of Manaphy instead of the Stealth Rocks, especially considering Zangoose has latent damage on itself from the Toxic Orb, and the Jirachi and Terrakion both resist Stealth Rock anyway, so I thought that was an interesting play. Maybe he was trying to get my Pokemon chipped into a certain range for something else on his team, I'm not entirely sure, but that was an interesting play. I'm going to be able to take out the Heatran here with the Earthquake. Now here's where that comes into play. So he goes into his Manaphy here, and like I said, I am guaranteed outside of range of modest Ice Beam for Manaphy, not even close. The only way he kills me is if he gets a crit, and I have T-Bolt on this Goodra, so the Manaphy will go down to this T-Bolt, and theoretically, if that were to happen, then he would have fewer ways to deal with Zangoose. Okay, so basically with this Raikou being not very invested offensively, or not offensively invested at all, theoretically, I'd be able to Wish Pass into the Zangoose at some point during the game, and I'd be able to get up a +2, or Wish Pass into the Zangoose on the Raikou, and get up a +2 Swords Dance with Zangoose, and he would have to essentially pick his sack fodders at that point in time, because he would have to keep the Amoonguss alive. He'd probably initially go into the Amoonguss on the Zangoose, but once he sees +2, he's going to have to save the Amoonguss, because he absolutely needs the Amoonguss alive to be able to have any chance of beating Terrakion. Cheats is a good player, he's going to make the good play, and that is keeping Amoonguss alive. That means he has to sack other teammates, and if this didn't happen, crit, dead, then this Manaphy would be gone to a T-Bolt, and he would have one less way to deal with the Zangoose. And I'll show you how that unfolds here in a little bit as these turns move on, as he is going to go into his Amoonguss on my Terrakion and go for the Stone Edge just in case I happen to get a crit on the first one. I might be able to follow it up with a second Stone Edge and get my kill, but unfortunately we don't get the crits. I'm going to go hard into my Jirachi. Here I can Wish Up on the most likely incoming Raikou. That's exactly what he does, and this is my prime opportunity to go straight into my Zangoose, because he is either clicking Thunder Wave or Shadow Ball, and as you'll see here, I go hard into Zangoose like a man, and he goes for the T-Wave. So Zangoose is back at full health. If the Manaphy was not there, as I click Swords Dance right now as he goes into Amoonguss, he has one less sack, and let's see how that one less sack comes into play as I'm going to fire off the Swords Dance on the incoming Amoonguss. And now he's going to be forced to sack something. So what's he going to sack? Probably Manaphy or Sylveon. He sacks the Sylveon. Okay, so Sylveon is down. Now, Zangoose still has enough juice in him to get one more kill. What's that kill going to be? He goes into his Manaphy. This would be dead. I click Quick Attack, he's dead. If he goes into Raikou, which would have been his response, he would have gone into Raikou. If he didn't have Manaphy, then I'd be able to whittle the Raikou into range of exactly one hit from Jirachi, which is all I needed to do to be able to win the game. So that's kind of frustrating that I could have probably had the game locked up at that point in time without the crit on the Goodra. But here I'm going to, let me back up a little bit. Because this is actually a pretty big deal. Alright, so we see this down. This is a double down. Okay. Let it play out real quick. And we're both down. Cool. Alright, so you already saw what happened earlier, but let's talk about this a little bit. So it's 2v2, and it's basically 50-50 of sorts here as to who goes into what, and I need to win this 50-50 to stay in the game. So here's the thought process. He could go into his Amoonguss, but if I go into Jirachi immediately, right away, as he goes into Amoonguss, then I get off a 100% free Psyshock, and Raikou doesn't really want to deal with that, quite honestly, especially because I've already revealed to have a Wish. That would allow me to get healed right back up immediately, and that could give him a hard time. So I think he's going to go into Raikou on his end, almost guaranteed, because Raikou is at least a safe middle ground between the two. If he goes Raikou and I go into Terrakion, he can easily go into Amoonguss for free without any trouble. Raikou is his switch in here. So for me, I need to actually go into my Terrakion, because in order for the Raikou to be 2-hit KO'd by my Jirachi Psyshock, I do have that extra 132, I believe, EVs and special attack on the Jirachi. In order for this to be in range, I need him to take 2 rounds of Stealth Rock damage. So I need him to come in once here and then come in again, and then he will be in range of at least a roll from a Psyshock from my Jirachi. That's the game plan. I need to make that happen, so I need to force the Raikou out immediately. That is done by going into my Terrakion here. So that's what I'm going to do. He goes into Raikou as expected as I go into Terrakion. Now, expecting him to switch out into Amoonguss, I need to double into my Jirachi because that will force the Raikou back in again, putting it in range of the second Psyshock. So I'm going to double into my Jirachi as he goes into his Amoonguss. Perfect. Now the Raikou is going to take that second wave of Stealth Rock damage. I'm going to fire off a Wish here on this turn. Now, this is another play that was in a sense kind of tricky for me to figure out, because what I could have done is gone for a Psyshock on this turn. And what that would have done is that would have ensured that Raikou was in range of to a KO from Psyshock. Guaranteed would have been in range. The problem is, if I had gone for a Psyshock on this turn as he goes for a Shadow Ball on the turn that I try to take him out, my Jirachi would have actually been in range of Amoonguss's Giga Drain, most likely. So I'm actually forced to set up a Wish here on the switch into Raikou, which is fine. Now, how this works now is that I have a Wish in the air. Shadow Ball cannot take me out. It doesn't even get close. It doesn't even get close to 50%. So, theoretically, I can Wish Psyshock over and over again until I win the game at this point. That's how this works. That would be essentially a guaranteed win on my end if that were to happen. However, Cheese brought Thunder Wave, and now we have to deal with Yellow Magic, and it works immediately. Okay, so that's kind of cool. We don't get off the Psyshock here, where it was actually a 50% roll to take out the Raikou from that range. So we don't get off that Psyshock. That's fine. I can set up another Wish. No, I can't. Okay, I could have set up another Wish there and then gone for another Psyshock and still had a good chance to win the game, but the double para kind of prevents that from happening. But that's fine. We have another chance to win this game. This is okay. I have a Terrakion, which can still chew any hit from this Raikou. This is not an invested Raikou. It's pretty straightforward. But now I have to double back out again into my Amoonguss, or into my Jirachi on the likely incoming Amoonguss, and try this again. I can set up another Wish on the switch out, and then I can fire off a Psyshock, and we can still make this happen. We just need to not get fully paralyzed a third time in a row. And we got this. I think we got this. It's fine. I should be able to wish Psyshock him down. Yep. No, we can't because triple pairs happen. So yeah, now we lose, which is great. Now I will say that this isn't necessarily a fair response to what Cheese's thought process might have been at that time in the game. If different plays had happened, if different things had happened, if the full paralysis didn't happen, Cheese could have made different plays. The game could have been totally different in the end game. Cool, I understand that, but how I felt at the time was that I at least had a 50% chance to win the game with my Jirachi if I did not get double parried immediately there on the first exchange after the Thunder Wave hits. So, quite honestly, screw full paralysis. Like, what the heck, man? It's so dumb. But, you know what? It's whatever. We are going to lose this game. We're going to attempt to get lucky here, as on the previous turn there, I could have potentially won if I got a crit Stone Edge on the Amoonguss. As I do get the crit here, but unfortunately he's going to be able to Spore me down, which was pretty clutch on his end, actually. If he didn't have Spore, I could have actually still won with Terrakion if I got a double crit with Stone Edge, but he is going to be able to inevitably stall me down here, especially because he's playing it smart with the Syntheses. But what definitely could have happened, as now I'm out of Stone Edges, so he was just stalling me out there. But my only way to really win at this point was to get a crit with Stone Edge on the turn where he killed me, and then I'd be able to outspeed with Jirachi actually and take him out with the Psyshock. That would have been in range, but at least I believe it would have been in range, if not very close to in range. But unfortunately, that's not quite how it works out. We are going to actually lose this game 1-0. So, am I a little salty about losing this game? Yeah, kind of. That said, I felt like I played really well, honestly. The matchup was pretty even. T-Tar kind of bodied me, but Zangoose kind of bodied him too, so in that sense it was pretty even. But, I don't know. Paralysis just gives me a really hard time. Paralysis and Freeze are probably my two least favorite things of Pokemon, even above critical hits. And yeah, it kind of sucks that the triple para kind of just sealed the deal in Cheese's favor in this game. But I ran the numbers a little bit. You know, I'm a numbers guy. I've done this before in the past. Full paralysis is supposed to be 25%. I got it. I was fully paralyzed 36% of the time, 3 of which were in a very crucial part of the game. I would have preferred to be fully paralyzed in my exchange with the Amoonguss when I had the Goodra out against the Amoonguss earlier in the game. I would have much preferred to be fully paralyzed during that point of the game instead of here at the end when I had all the plays marked out exactly what I needed to do to win the game. I would much rather have been fully paralyzed early than here at the end. But, you know, it is what it is. Got fully paralyzed 36% of the time. That is absolute crap. As well as getting Ice Beam crit on my Goodra from the Manaphy, removing his crucial sack to Zangoose. So, you know what? It is what it is. Full credit to my opponent, though. He played very, very well. His prep was phenomenal, honestly. I thought that Cheese really stepped up his game here in his prep, so full credit to him on that. Just felt like I was in a good position there to win at least 50% chance there at the end before the triple para, but honestly close to 100%. No, I shouldn't say close to 100%, but above 50%. If the Manaphy did not crit the Goodra, but you know, it is what it is. We'll take the loss and move on. So we move on to a 1-1 record, still +1 differential, which is pretty nice. And Cheese advances to a 1-1 record with, I believe, a -1 differential. So we're both in the same conference, so glad to still be ahead of him at least in that regard. But yep, so next week we have a game against Togavor and his Portland Timbers. My matchup's pretty shit-tacular, excuse my language. He's got Mega Mawile and Trick Room and all this stuff that I can't really deal with super well, so it'll be a challenge to prep for, to say the least, but we'll do our best. We'll see what happens. And yeah, so hopefully we don't have to start 1 and 2, but we'll do my best on that. So thanks for watching, guys. I hope you did enjoy. Please don't get mad at me for being so salty and whatnot. And no disrespect meant toward my opponent. Just explaining it how I see it. And if he has his own opinion, which I know he does, feel free to check out his video. And if he wants to comment about it here, feel free as well. I fully respect his opinion. I respect him a lot as a battler, so fully would like to see what he thinks about it as well. So, yep. So that's all I have to say. Thanks for watching, guys, and I will see you all next time. Peace.